Millionaire CEO discovers twins selling their priceless necklace to save their mom. An amazing tragedy unfolding in the heart of Chicago. Jack Thompson, 42, strode through the glass towers of his tech empire, the sunlight reflecting his wealth. Yet inside, he felt hollow, the booming success of his firm doing little to bridge the growing chasm of emptiness within him. Coffee in hand, he watched employees scurry, their excitement contrasting his own internal chaos. Each achievement only amplified his disconnection, and he started questioning the man he had become. Wealthy, yes, but at what cost? The bustling neighborhood market hummed with laughter, an almost foreign sound, as Jack wandered beyond his corporate realm, his mind heavy with unread emails and incoming investments. That's when he spotted them, twin girls, Emily and Sarah, perched on a curb, their small hands trembling as they clutched an heirloom necklace. The shimmering metal glinted in the sunlight, but what caught Jack's breath was the desperate bond between them, their whispered encouragements a stark contrast to the world around them. The sight gnawed at something long forgotten within him. What's wrong? Jack approached hesitantly, their wide eyes trained on him, speaking volumes of unspoken fear. The twins shared their challenge, selling their grandmother's necklace to pay for their mother's mounting medical bills. A sudden ache pierced Jack's heart. Here were children wrestling with a reality he'd long avoided. He felt their desperation wrap around him, tightening like a noose, dragging him further into their struggles. He had once learned the importance of family, loyalty, and compassion, yet here he stood, nearly a stranger to those ideals. Was he willing to exploit their vulnerability for his guilt? Jack's mind raced. These girls weren't just faces in the crowd. They represented everything he had strayed from. Should he offer them money for the necklace? But would that be helping or taking advantage? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As Jack dove deeper into the twins' plight, his anxiety morphed into an internal storm. He couldn't fathom why he felt so drawn to them. Their world was starkly different from his, colored by fear and survival. Yet it mirrored the shadows of his childhood, memories that began surfacing, sacrifices made, losses endured. Then an unexpected twist, a discovery of his own lineage linked him to the twins. Each detail shattered his previously held beliefs about his life, challenging everything he thought he knew about success. Caught in a whirlwind, Jack faced a critical choice. Should he leverage his resources to alter the twins' fate, or remain ensnared by his ambition? Time ticked ominously in the background, the fate of Emily and Sarah's mother hanging by a thread. Doubt and moral confusion stirred within him, the pressure building to a breaking point. Would he finally embrace the core values he once cherished, or allow the darkness of his corporate world to extinguish the light of possibility? The tension swelled as Jack grappled with his priorities, the clock ticking down, the road ahead blurred and uncertain. Jack's mind raced, each heartbeat echoing against the backdrop of hurried footsteps and bustling conversations. The twins' plight ignited a fire within him that he hadn't felt in years, a longing to act rather than merely witness. His thoughts swirled, trapped in the nexus of opportunity and morality, questioning whether money could indeed buy the relief they desperately needed for their mother. He stepped back, taking a moment to breathe, the cacophony of his corporate life fading as he focused on the two girls before him. Their vulnerability reflected the fragility of life in a way that a quarterly earnings report never could. Was he truly prepared to offer them what they needed? Money for a priceless item that held more sentimental value than financial? "Look," Jack said, his voice steady despite the tumult inside. "How much do you need for your mom's bills?" The twins exchanged glances, their uncertainty palpable. $50, sir," Emily pressed, her voice trembling. "We just need a little time, just until we can figure something out." $50. The figure felt insubstantial against the backdrop of his wealth, yet it shimmered with deeper meaning as he contemplated the weight of that modest amount on the lives of these girls. "I can give you that," Jack replied, almost reflexively. The words felt foreign, a promise that beckoned him to a path less traveled. Their eyes widened, a flicker of hope igniting as they nodded vigorously, their relief catching him off guard. But what followed was more profound. Jack felt an urge to delve deeper, to understand their story, not just solve their immediate crisis with transactional generosity. "How about we sit down somewhere and talk?" He pointed towards a nearby cafe, suggesting a shift in their interaction from mere transaction to dialogue. The girls hesitated, then nodded again, their trust shifting like a tide. He led them to a small table shaded by a large umbrella, the world outside creating an ambiance that felt different from his usual sterile boardroom discussions. The air was thick with anticipation, and the energy shifted as they settled in, leaving the tensions of the marketplace behind. As they talked over steaming cups of cocoa, Jack learned about their mother's illness, the fluctuations of their daily life echoing chaotic rhythms reminiscent of his own childhood fears. As they recounted memories of laughter and sunlight, Jack felt pieces of his own past within their narrative, each laugh harboring shadows he'd buried under layers of ambition and denial. In that moment, vulnerability wasn't just theirs, it became his. He recognized a haunting parallel. His climb to success came at the cost of being present, of nurturing the bonds that mattered. "Why don't you stay close to your mom? Is there support nearby?" he asked, the vulnerability of the question weighing heavily. The twins exchanged eye contact, and he sensed their unspoken fears surfacing beneath their innocence. "We're afraid. We're doing our best to help her, but," Emily murmured, faltering under the gravity of honesty. Jack's heart clenched. Here were children, bearing responsibilities far beyond their years, amidst a harsh world of survival. "Let me help," he said, an impulsive decision rippling through him, morphing from mere financial assistance to a genuine resolve. Their eyes widened in disbelief, as if they were witnessing a miracle. Jack was no longer merely a businessman. In that moment, he felt like a guardian, a protector, not of wealth, but of hope. Yet the challenge ahead loomed large. To dive deeper into their lives and offer meaningful support meant holding himself accountable, wading into the complexities of their struggles and merging those with his nouveau sense of purpose. Would this lead him to discover a new version of himself? Or would he find himself lost in the very complexities he thought he could help? Jack felt the pull of transformation, aware that he was at a precipice. The past demanded a reckoning, and with that realization came the dawning question: what would he leave behind as he stepped into this new role? As uncertainty crackled in the air, a phone call broke through the moment, his assistant urgently requesting his attention. Back to the towers of glass, the temptation of the business world loomed, beckoning him towards a path he knew far too well. Could he really turn away from that? He felt the conflict surge, setting the stage for a confrontation of self-loyalty versus the newfound purpose tugging at his heart. What lay ahead was uncertain, and Jack was on a path that would force him to redefine not only his relationship with the twins, but also with himself. Jack's heart raced as the phone call ended, leaving him standing at the crossroads of his life. The buzzing excitement of the corporate world felt muted against the raw urgency radiating from the twins' situation. He could almost hear the towering office walls calling him back, promising success, profit margins, and accolades. Yet something deeper tugged at his core, urging him toward a path of personal fulfillment, one that he had forgotten existed. As he rejoined the flow of the market, Jack's mind buzzed with conflicting thoughts. Just a few moments ago, he felt tethered to a purpose greater than spreadsheets and quarterly goals. Now, faced with the reality of his responsibilities, he wrestled with the temptation of abandoning this newfound mission. The twins peered at him, the warmth in their eyes a reminder of the innocence he had long ago traded.
For ambition. What kind of man would walk away from a promise, especially one that could mean the world to two girls in desperate need? He realized, in their engagement, in their existence, he had found a mirror reflecting his own buried aspirations and fears, the child he had once been, filled with hope, buoyed by the possibility of making a difference. "You said you needed help," he heard himself say, surprising even himself with the conviction in his voice. This wasn't a business transaction. This was a pledge, one that tied his own growth to theirs. He finally understood that responsibility didn't end with handing over cash. It held significance in the form of presence, empathy, and consistency. Jack thought of his mother, the lessons she had woven into his childhood about compassion and standing by those in need. Could he honor those teachings by stepping beyond monetary support? The decision began to crystallize in his mind as he envisioned ways to assist them that extended beyond the immediate urgency of funds. "What if I could help you find additional resources?" he suggested, inspiration bubbling up inside him. "There must be community programs, perhaps organizations that could provide care for your mom." Emily and her sister shared a hesitant glance, unsure whether to cling to hope or parse through skepticism. Jack noted their apprehension with a pang in his chest. He could feel the weight of their struggles settling upon his shoulders. He had to earn their trust, and that required more than just words. It demanded a tangible commitment to walk with them through their journey. As he navigated these thoughts, a realization struck him. He had been blessed with the acumen to build financial strategies, to forge partnerships, and access resources. What if he employed those skills for a cause greater than profit? Jack's resolve solidified. He could pivot from the pursuits of corporate dominance to becoming a catalyst for change in the twins' world. He would initiate contact with local nonprofits, explore healthcare options, and maybe even tap into networks he had built throughout his career. With each thought reshaping his plans, a sense of purpose illuminated his path forward. This was not merely altruism. It was a profound return to values he had compromised in his relentless pursuit of success. "Let's find a solution together," he spoke, locking eyes with the twins. He saw their doubt begin to lift, a glimmer of trust emerging as they nodded in agreement. As they continued their conversation, Jack felt a palpable shift within himself. Any lingering doubts about his own worth faded, replaced by an understanding that his journey could influence more than just his personal legacy. Yet, even as he embarked on this path, a reminder lingered in his mind. The corporate demands still awaited. They wouldn't necessarily dissipate simply because he had chosen a different road. As they wrapped up their meeting, Jack's phone buzzed again. This time a reminder for an upcoming meeting about a major deal, one that could significantly elevate his standing in the industry. The tension in the air thickened as he contemplated which world to immerse himself in. Could he balance both these divergent paths? Jack stood once more at a pivotal junction, eyes cast toward the horizon of possibilities, questioning if he could seamlessly weave his business savvy with compassionate commitment. In a landscape painted with the silhouettes of both duty and desire, he awaited the challenge of reconciling his professional ambitions with the awakening of his moral compass. Would he risk it all to forge a path that aligned with the man he was becoming? The thought clung to him as he squared his shoulders, determined to navigate the complexities ahead. Jack's mind spiraled as he exited the small coffee shop, leaving the twins with renewed hope and a newly ignited mission. Each step felt heavier, dragging him down the path of duty and expectation. The phone buzzed again, this time more insistent, pulling him back to the world of quarterly performance metrics and strategic partnerships waiting just blocks away. He glanced at the shimmering skyscrapers that played backdrop to his corporate ambition, towers that seemed to mock his current dilemma. The allure of climbing further up the corporate ladder whispered promises of power and prestige, but in his gut he could feel a shift. The past few hours had unsettled him, awakening a sense of responsibility he had been negligent of for far too long. Jack trudged down the sidewalk, grappling with the weight of his choices. Wasn't he a product of that corporate world? Excellence, discipline, success, they had all defined him for years. Yet here he was, questioning whether accolades could fill the emptiness that lingered since he last felt truly connected to something beyond his personal gain. Beneath the polished exterior of his business acumen lay uncharted territory, compassion. How could he reconcile the man he was with the man he aspired to be? His conversation with the twins reverberated in his mind, a challenge that now demanded genuine action. As he reached his office, the atmosphere buzzed with the anticipatory energy that came before a big deal. Colleagues rushed past him, competing agendas and ambitions governing their every step. Jack momentarily lost himself in the familiar rhythm until he recognized a growing dissonance in his heart. While others chased the next big promotion, he was drifting toward an unfamiliar horizon where emotional investments reigned paramount. The conference room awaited him, a sleek enclave of glass and steel that held the promise of major profits. Yet a deep-rooted discomfort gnawed at him as he entered, taking his place at the head of the table. His partners, excited and eager, launched into presentations and forecasts, but Jack found it difficult to engage, his thoughts still lingering on Emily and her sister. "Jack?" A voice broke through the fog. "Are you with us?" He blinked, startled to be pulled back into the room. The vehemence of their projections felt hollow now, and Jack realized just how easy it was for him to habituate to a life of profit over people. "Yeah, sorry, let's move on," he managed, then committed to sinking his focus into the meeting while also strategizing ways to align his business networks with causes that could assist the twins. What if he organized a charity auction featuring products from companies he had ties with? He could leverage his influence to direct funds toward their mother's care while impressing influential stakeholders, a double play in service of both his newfound mission and his corporate obligations. As the meeting concluded, the sense of urgency overwhelmed him. He left to gather data on local nonprofits and healthcare initiatives, intent on sculpting a framework that balanced the imminent corporate demands with a renewed mission to aid the twins. Navigating through the labyrinth of his responsibilities, he couldn't help but feel the stakes had changed. This was no longer about merely achieving success, it was about forging a meaningful legacy. Yet the shadow of his upcoming presentation and the potential territorial games that lingered among colleagues loomed ominously over him. Jack stared out at the horizon once more, his heart gripped by uncertainty. Could he truly align the race for professional achievement with the deeper values he was starting to embrace? A call to action buzzed through his thoughts, morphing into something far more urgent. He had not yet faced his colleagues with his true intentions, and he knew that would require confronting the very real possibility that they might not understand or accept his shift in focus. The time had come for him to expose the tension between ambition and authenticity. All the while, the twins' faces fluttered in his memory, an ever-present reminder of the cost of failure, echoing with the question that haunted him. What was he willing to sacrifice to prove he could be more than just a corporate titan? Jack's heartbeat quickened as he sat at his desk, the spreadsheets and meticulously crafted reports appearing more like artifacts of a distant past than the work that had once thrilled him. He needed a plan, a way to weave together the threads of his evolving purpose with the relentless grind of corporate ambition. The need for action pulsed through him, igniting a fire that hadn't burned in years. He opened his laptop, the screen illuminating his face in the dim office light, revealing a sea of data points poised to distract him from the emotional work at hand. Yet he resisted the urge to dive into the safety of numbers. Instead, he focused on the twins, their optimism and desperation igniting a sense of urgency he had never known. What had started as guilt transformed into a flicker of hope, prompting him to seek ways he could genuinely contribute. He drafted an email to his contacts, detailing his vision for a charity auction, highlighting the potential to draw in sponsors willing to align with a cause that truly resonated. As he tapped away, anxiety lurked at the edges of his thoughts. The very colleagues who had cheered for his past victories might now question his motives. Would they dismiss this new path as weakness or view him as a man torn between two worlds? The internal conflict grew with each passing minute. Jack stared out at the city below, the same towers that had once beckoned with aspirations of success now standing as ominous symbols of conflict. He could either chase success as defined by profit margins or pursue something infinitely more significant, even if it carried risks that jeopardized his standing in the corporate hierarchy. Finally, his decision crystallized. He would hold a meeting with his partners, not just to unveil his plans for the auction, but to confront his pending identity crisis head-on. This was not merely about making a profit or saving face, it was about sharing his newfound commitment to making a difference. The day of the meeting arrived. As he entered the conference room, his colleagues' chatter fell silent, and all eyes turned to him, expectant and curious. Jack felt the weight of their scrutiny and inhaled deeply, steadying himself. This was a crucial moment, not just for him, but potentially for the entire culture of the company. "Thank you all for joining," he began, his voice firm yet laced with vulnerability. "I want to talk about something quite different today." The murmurs of confusion from across the table held firm as he steeled himself. "I've recently encountered a situation that has opened my eyes to the impact we can have beyond our bottom line." Jack shared the story of Emily and her sister, their struggle woven through his words. He saw shifting expressions, curiosity morphing into concern, then hope. He walked them through his vision, igniting sparks of interest in their eyes. With each new piece, he felt an unexpected surge of belonging, the validation of his intentions slowly unfolding. Yet he could sense the skepticism lingering in the air. "I know some of you may wonder if this is a distraction, but I believe our success can only be measured if we measure it against the value we add to lives," he concluded, bracing for their reactions. The silence that followed was thick with tension. Jack's heart raced as decisions silently brewed in the minds of his colleagues. Would they embrace this shift, join him in a new mission, or would he stand alone, shunning the very accolades he had once aspired to preserve? As they began to respond, he realized that the journey to align ambition with authenticity would not be straightforward. Perhaps this was only the first step, a step that required surrendering the comfort of status for the messy pursuit of genuine purpose. The moment unfurled like the dawn of a new day. Yet Jack's resolve trembled at the precipice of uncertainty. "Can we reframe what success looks like here?" he asked, his voice barely concealing the urgency beneath. And as conversations sparked around him, he knew that the path ahead would demand more than courage. It would require him to confront the harsh realities of expectation and acceptance. He had opened the door, but would he be able to step through it into the unknown? The stakes had shifted, and the air was charged with a palpable tension. One question lingered. Would he be met with collaboration or resistance? The answer was about to reveal itself, and with it, the potential for a transformative future. The room buzzed with a cacophony of voices, each colleague wrestling with Jack's radical proposition. He felt himself retreating into a tight ball of anxiety beneath their scrutiny. Faces flickered through his mind, a blend of skepticism and uncertainty, while he desperately searched for solidarity. Would they see the opportunity in his vision, or would they recoil into their comfort zones? The first voice broke the silence. Brian, his closest partner and strategic counterpart, leaned forward, brow furrowed. "Jack, you know I respect you, but are we really going to shift our focus like this? Our clients rely on us for solid returns, not charity work." The question hung in the air, a challenge that cut through the tension. Jack met his gaze, feeling the weight of his words. "I understand, Brian, but the very clients we serve seek more than profits. They want to align with companies that resonate with their values. Imagine the potential for us to redefine success." A pause ensued, thick with doubt. Jack's pulse quickened. Could he convince them of something much bigger than numbers? It was Sarah, the marketing director, who broke the tension next. "I have to admit, there's a part of me that feels inspired by this vision. But how do we measure success in this endeavor? What are the KPIs?" "Key performance indicators," Jack repeated slowly, his mind racing to formulate a response. "We can start by measuring the number of lives we impact, the contributions we make to community initiatives, and how these efforts reflect positively on our brand. Success can be three-dimensional rather than just a flat bottom line." "That's a big leap, Jack," Brian interjected again, crossing his arms. "Are we emotionally investing ourselves into something that could jeopardize our reputation if it fails?" Internally grappling with his response, Jack felt the twinge of frustration and fear teetering within him. He understood their concerns, and they echoed his own inner voice of doubt. But was he willing to give in? Are we willing to stand still, maintaining the status quo, while opportunities for authentic connection slip away? They whispered among themselves, weighing his arguments against their reservations. Jack's heart raced, fueled by the realization that the decision wasn't simply about this initiative. It was a turning point in his career and identity, a test to determine whether he could bridge ambition and purpose. Then, unexpected voices of support emerged. Rebecca, the analyst known for her no-nonsense approach, spoke up. "You know what? I've seen companies thrive after harnessing their social responsibility. It attracts talent, retains clients, and fosters loyalty. Maybe there's something here." A flicker of hope sparked in Jack. Could this be the shift he desperately craved? Before he could respond, questions erupted, and with them a flood of excitement and anxiety. They shifted from skeptical barbs to enthusiastic inquiries about partnerships, marketing strategies, and the kinds of sponsorships they might pursue. Amidst the discussion, a more profound concern simmered inside Jack. Would this newfound enthusiasm hold? Once eclipsed by the urgency of sales and contracts, would they resort back to old mindsets when the next quarterly report loomed? The meeting extended beyond the allotted time, each minute adding complexity to Jack's internal struggle. He felt a surge of adrenaline. A crack was forming in the corporate rigidity. Was it enough to make a real difference? As the conversation wound down and the colleagues grew more animated, Jack caught Brian's critical gaze lingering on him. The tension between them rekindled doubts about their relationship. Had he jeopardized their partnership for a vision too radical? Before he departed the room, Jack posed a question that sent ripples of uncertainty back through the group. If we go through with this endeavor, will we be able to courageously champion it, regardless of where it leads us? Or will we find ourselves snuffing out this spark as soon as it flickers? He left the meeting contemplating the answers, wrestling with the reality that the hardest part still lay ahead, shaping a cohesive vision into actionable steps that might be met with resistance from not only exterior forces, but from his own convictions. As he stepped into the corridor, Jack realized the looming question was not about acceptance or collaboration, but rather what kind of leader he intended to become. A harbinger of change, or merely a transient voice lost in the corporate din? With every step, he felt the contradictions of purpose weighing on him like a heavy cloak. Would he rise to this challenge, or retreat into the confines of conventional success? Change beckoned, yet the cost lurked just beyond the horizon. Jack's mind raced as he navigated the hallways, each step amplifying the internal dialogue, compelling him to confront the crossroads before him. The blurry images of skeptical eyes pierced his confidence, demanding he forge a clear path forward. His passion surged amidst apprehension, teetering between ambition and the impending fear of failure. He had sown the seeds of a radical shift, but would they blossom? He drifted into his office, the overhead lights buzzing like the frenzy of thoughts crowding his mind. The view outside, vast and city-strewn with opportunity, yet reminiscent of his recent turmoil, felt almost stifling. His desk, a battleground of papers and projections, lay cluttered, mirroring his mental state. He needed clarity. Pacing back and forth, Jack recalled Rebecca's supportive voice, the glimmer of hope it had ignited. Yet doubt still clung to him like a persistent shadow. The fear of abandonment by his team loomed large. The stakes felt higher than they had ever been.
This wasn't just about a strategic pivot. It was about the essence of what they represented and where they would stand in the market. He sank into his chair, flipping through notes he had scribbled during the meeting. What had once seemed like a fervent revolution now shimmered with uncertainty. How could he translate the abstract concept of social responsibility into tangible strategies that would hold up under scrutiny? The meeting had sparked enthusiasm, but could that energy persist against the inevitable grind of quarterly targets? As he mulled over potential frameworks, an idea began to crystallize. What if they could prototype a small, manageable project that dovetailed with their clients' interests? This could be a pilot initiative, a tangible action that correlated with their existing services while still venturing into the realm of social impact. Selling this idea internally would require a delicate blend of persuasion and logic, aiming to show them that values could align with profit. Armed with this inspiration, Jack grabbed a notepad and began brainstorming details. After outlining potential initiatives, he visualized how these projects could be structured, assessed, and presented. Each bullet point felt like a step toward construction rather than mere conjecture. Ideas to create partnerships, advocate for local charities, and embed corporate responsibility into their brand narrative danced on the page. However, as enthusiasm blossomed, a cold wave of reality crashed over him. Would Brian, with his hawkish view on traditional strategies, support the risk? Jack knew he needed to have an honest conversation with him, a voice that could either empower this vision or hinder it. He took a deep breath and decided to text Brian. "Can we meet? I want to discuss the next steps of the proposal." The tension of waiting weighed on him like lead. Later, Brian appeared at his door, arms crossed in that familiar defensive posture. Jack's stomach twisted, but he forced a reassuring smile, hoping to bridge the chasm that had grown in their partnership. "Let's lay it all on the table," Jack began, pride wrestling with uncertainty in his voice. "I believe we have a chance to redefine success, a gradual step into this new frontier." Brian's brow furrowed deeper, and Jack could see the gears turning. "What's the plan? How do you envision this working with our core values?" Jack was ready. He presented the framework he'd developed, articulating not just the why, but the how. As he spoke, the passion in his delivery crackled in the air, igniting a flicker of interest in Brian's gaze. But as Brian listened, Jack knew it was not enough to win him over with enthusiasm. A critical counterpoint popped up. "It sounds great, but how are we going to measure success, especially when we have rigid expectations from stakeholders?" Jack's heart raced. This was the challenge he had anticipated. By setting concrete KPIs that include both financial performance and impacts, he countered, allowing urgency to fuel his arguments. "We can frame the entire initiative as a learning phase. If we fail fast and learn from it. But if we succeed, we'll skyrocket our reputation." Brian leaned back, his expression unreadable. Silence stretched out, the hum of the office fading to a distant buzz as Jack cued in to his colleague's reaction. The cost of this ambition eclipsed any previous risks he had taken, and him fearing an all-too-familiar retreat from adventure. Would Brian choose partnership or avoidance? The outcome hung in the balance. And suddenly it struck him. The cost of sticking to the norm would far surpass the fear of failure. The question was not solely about winning support. It was about understanding what truly lay at stake, the essence of their mission. Jack's resolve hardened. He would stand firm, willing to confront the uncharted territory ahead, even if it meant risking everything. The moment of truth was drawing close. Would Brian share that vision, or would Jack stand alone? And as the doubt loomed, vibrant yet tantalizing possibilities danced just beyond the horizon, whispering of the changes waiting to unfold in both Jack's leadership journey and the corporate landscape as a whole. The journey ahead would mark a definitive turning point, one way or another. Jack held his breath as he waited for Brian's response. The silence in the room felt oppressive, each moment stretching out as Brian contemplated the presentation. Jack felt the pressure building. This was not just another meeting. It was a potential turning point for every person involved. Finally, Brian spoke, breaking the tension like ice cracking underfoot. "I see some merit in your proposal," he said slowly, "but I have to know, what if it flops? How can we withstand the scrutiny?" Jack met his gaze, the urge to retreat nagging at his psyche, pulling him toward the well-worn path of comfort. But the weight of his ideas pulled him forward, battling against that instinctive hesitation. What if it succeeds? What if this creates an unprecedented opportunity for us? I believe it could elevate us above competitors who aren't thinking this way. Brian's eyes were narrowed, processing the additional stakes Jack had laid out. The atmosphere in the office shifted. Jack could feel the flicker of skepticism upturning to curiosity. He couldn't afford to let this moment slip away. "Let's consider the cost of inaction," Jack pressed on, suddenly fire in his voice. "Sticking to what's safe could lead us to mediocrity. We're risking falling behind in a world that's increasingly prioritizing corporate responsibility. If we're not proactive, we'll be obsolete." As Brian leaned forward, Jack recognized the gateway had opened a fraction wider. He seized the moment, ready to pour in the determination that had been simmering within. "We need to take a leap of faith. Let's start small. We'll set up measurable goals, even if they're conservative. We should pilot this initiative with one client willing to explore the new framework. If it works, we expand. If it doesn't, we have data to refine our approach." For the first time, Jack noted a faint glimmer of interest in Brian's expression. "And you think the team will follow? You know their instincts. More data, more control." "They will," Jack countered with surprising conviction. "They want to believe in something. They want meaning in their work. This isn't just about metrics, it's about engagement." There it was, a shift. Brian chewed on Jack's words, and tension ebbed as they navigated the subtle balance between ambition and apprehension. In that moment, something profound blossomed within Jack, a self-discovery that transcended the walls marking his professional career. He was emerging as not just a leader attempting to push an agenda, but as a catalyst for a meaningful change that resonated deeply with his fundamental beliefs. The passion that flowed through him felt new and exhilarating, highlighting strengths he'd previously overlooked. As Brian processed Jack's assertiveness, Jack couldn't ignore a lingering doubt. This newfound resolve didn't guarantee success. Despite his fervor, what if the team resisted? Would it be a case of too much too soon? He had yet to fully test his capacity to engage and inspire the people who had once only viewed him as a colleague. Jack left the cubicle, a mixture of hope gripping him alongside anxiety as he headed to the team's workspace. The diverse faces of his colleagues, buried in screens and discussions, confronted him. Here was the battleground. Would they embrace this new vision or challenge him as Brian did? As the reality of potential confrontation loomed larger in his mind, Jack prepared himself. The journey toward igniting a transformation meant much more than abstract proposals. It required genuine dialogues and unfiltered responses. Commanding attention when people were focused on their tasks would be delicate. Could he muster his courage to deliver his message? Could he create a shift in their mindset? The moment had arrived. He took a deep breath, found his bearings, and stepped toward the team gathering. "I need to talk to everyone." It wasn't just another meeting.
It was the beginning of the metamorphosis he sought. But what he hadn't anticipated was the lurking resistance he could already sense, a tide he had yet to fully prepare for. Would his ambition withstand the backlash of skepticism? The reckoning was fast approaching. Jack's heart raced as the team paused, heads lifting from their screens, curiosity mingling with skepticism in the air. He felt the weight of their collective gaze, a mixture of expectation and wariness. The familiar environment felt alien. The walls seemed to close in as he orchestrated the next move. "We've reached a pivotal moment," he began, his voice steady yet tinged with urgency. "I want to discuss a new initiative that could redefine our approach. It's a chance to lead rather than follow." The simplicity of his words belied the complexity of what he envisioned, a transformative leap that could chart a fresh course for the company. A hand shot up from the back. It was Clara, her brow furrowed, skepticism radiating from her posture. "What makes you think we need to change anything at all? Our current metrics are solid. Why fix what isn't broken?" Jack felt a jolt of adrenaline, a fleeting moment where doubt threatened to collapse his resolve. It would have been easy to retreat into familiar justifications or data points, but he had a different plan. He realized that the only way to persuade this audience was to connect on a deeper level. "What if I told you that solid metrics don't guarantee future success?" He paused, letting the question linger in the air. "The market is shifting, and if we don't adapt, we might become irrelevant." Whispers spread among colleagues, and some nodded thoughtfully. But Clara wasn't finished. "You don't have numbers to support that." Her tone felt like a challenge, an obstacle he needed to dismantle. "True," Jack admitted, leaning in slightly. "But I have something else, vision. And I believe vision is just as valuable as cold, hard data. It's about what we want to be, a company that doesn't just turn a profit, but truly engages with our clients and stands for something greater." He could see the flicker of interest among a few team members, and he seized that momentum. "Let's start small. I propose we pilot this with a willing client and set measurable goals. If we succeed, we build momentum. If we fail, we learn, and that's valuable in its own right." The murmurs intensified, some intrigued, others hesitant. Jack's mind raced as he prepared for the next attack. But then Sam, usually quiet and reserved, spoke up. I think we could reach a different clientele with this approach. But what about existing clients? Are we putting them at risk?" "Great point, Sam," Jack replied, recognizing the pulse of growing engagement within the room. "This initiative doesn't leave anyone behind. It's about enhancing our offerings, not replacing them." He could sense a shift, a willingness to entertain possibilities that hadn't been considered. But with each passing moment, he was acutely aware that doubt still lingered. Would they fully embrace this challenge together? Or would this conversation collapse under the weight of anxiety and skepticism? "Let's be clear," Jack pressed on, shifting his focus to the broader implications. "This is not just a strategy. It's about empowerment. It's about rekindling our passion for what we do at this company. Let's choose to lead instead of being led." As he glanced around the room, he captured the attention of several colleagues. He felt the collective breathing change, a shared desire for something more. This was no longer a mere conversation. It was the dawn of potential transformation. Yet there were still shadows of doubt flickering in the corners of their eyes. Jack knew this was just the beginning of a long battle against skepticism. "Can we take this leap together?" he asked, his voice softer yet resolute. "Will we encourage each other to step outside our comfort zones?" Silence enveloped the room. An opportunity, trembling on the edge of a decision. He could almost hear the ticking clock, each second weighing heavily against the tension. Would they step into the unknown with him, or would they fold under traditional expectations? Jack felt his resolve firming, but beneath that certainty lay a fear that was undeniable, the fear of initiating a great change only to face rejection. As he waited for their response, something vital flickered within him, an understanding that every moment was a step toward a deeper version of himself and the leader he aspired to be. Yet the question hung in the air, palpable, cloaked in uncertainty. Would this bold vision usher in support or strife? The reckoning was at hand, and the choices they made in the next few moments would seize control of their destinies. In the wake of a decisive office meeting, Jack Thompson felt the pulsating tension of transformation. The air had shifted. His colleagues now wrestled with the prospects of a new direction that merged profit-driven goals with social responsibility. This was new territory, yet Jack felt an undeniable urgency urging him forward. The conversations that surged through the company were no longer simply about sales figures. They were about understanding how they could impact lives. Jack had witnessed a burgeoning excitement flicker in the eyes of some, while others still clung to skepticism. The challenge ahead was clear: translate this burgeoning enthusiasm into concrete action. Every day, Jack returned to the twins, Emily and Sarah, who sparked a purpose in him beyond mere numbers. Their faces had become a constant reminder. This was bigger than business. It was about nurturing hope where despair had threatened to take root. Motivated by a desire to make tangible strides, Jack meticulously crafted a proposal for a charity auction, an initiative showcasing local businesses while channeling proceeds toward initiatives that supported families like the twins. He mapped out partnerships that leveraged their corporate strength while preserving authenticity. He would not simply rest on a vision, he needed to enact change. With renewed vigor, Jack approached key stakeholders, his colleagues and the twins. He laid out the framework for the auction, challenging them to imagine the ripple effect of their engagement. By participating, we're voicing that profits can coexist with principled action. We'll stand for something greater than ourselves, he stated, forthright and passionate. Days turned into weeks, each moment a blend of strategic planning punctuated with moments of reflection. Jack's new role as a leader, an advocate for purpose, allowed him to navigate uncharted waters, promoting collaboration and empathy. The most important realization took root. He wasn't simply fighting for approval. He was igniting a movement within his organization. As the date of the auction approached, Jack felt an immense weight lift off his shoulders. There was a collective anticipation in the air. Colleagues who once hesitated to engage were now ambassadors of the cause, showcasing their contributions. Each conversation he had evoked a blend of purpose and excitement that jammed his heart with full satisfaction. Finally, on the day of the auction, Jack stood amidst a buzzing crowd. Beautifully curated items decorated tables, each piece a testament to talent, goodwill, and community spirit. As attendees bid generously, Jack caught Sarah and Emily's gazes from a distance. Their smiles radiated with warmth and hope. What had begun with a priceless necklace now spurred into a realization of impact and connection. He spoke that day, addressing the audience about their journey, about the picture that began with those two girls in Chicago and how their lives intertwined with the ethos of the company's shift. Jack felt a wave of recognition wash over him. He had embraced his past to forge a path of solid confidence, demonstrating that success could indeed stem from compassion. As the night unfolded, a sense of fulfillment enveloped Jack. He had redefined himself not merely as a millionaire CEO, but as a catalyst for change. The accolades he had once yearned for paled in comparison to the joy of standing amidst a community united for a purpose, representing real impact. He had conquered the internal turmoil that had weighed him down, emerging as a leader committed to balance ambition with altruism. As the night unfolded, a sense of fulfillment enveloped Jack. He had redefined himself not merely as a millionaire CEO, but as a catalyst for change. The accolades he had once yearned for paled in comparison to the joy of standing amidst a community united for a purpose, representing real impact.
He had conquered the internal turmoil that had weighed him down, emerging as a leader committed to balance ambition with altruism. When the event concluded, the total raised far exceeded expectations, securing funding to alleviate burdens for families like Emily and Sarah's. Jack had proven that empathy could coexist with ambition. He felt pride coursing through him, but it was a pride built on collective effort, mutual support, and change that rippled beyond the confines of their walls. Jack stepped outside, the cool breeze invigorating him, the reflection of skyscrapers twinkling against the night sky a reminder of how far he'd truly come. He had made a choice, to evolve from a solely ambitious businessman to a committed leader. The shifting sands of his internal landscape now stood firm, defining not just who he was, but who he would be moving forward. The journey was far from over. It was a dawning realization that he held within him the tools to foster transformation, both in his life and in the lives of many others. With purpose guiding him, he breathed deeply, ready to navigate the next chapter of his life with resolved intent and undeniable clarity. This was the moment for action. The world around him awaited, full of opportunities to shine a light on uncharted paths and inspire others to do the same. Now is the time to start your journey. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will unfold. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support like never before. And don't forget to comment your reactions and theories about this ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible conclusion. Don't wait even one more second.